Hi, this is Randall Schwartz, host of Floss Weekly. This week, Aaron Newcomb joins me. We're going to talk about the R2 Chatbot. It's a program that looks like a human being on a chat channel, so it can answer questions for you and tell you things that are going on. You're not going to want to miss this, so stay tuned.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Floss Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Floss Weekly with Randall Schwartz and Aaron Newcomb. Episode 232, recorded November 7th, 2012. The R2 Chatbot. It's time for Floss Weekly, the show about free, libre, open source software. I'm your host, Randall Schwartz, Merlin at StoneEdge.com, bringing you each week the big projects, the little projects, the movers, the shakers, things you've never heard of before, like probably today's show, maybe, things you've heard a lot about, like some of the previous shows we've had on recently. I've been gone for a couple weeks. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the show, but I am back in the big seat taking care of business. With me again, as always, is a really great co-host. This week is none other than our friend Aaron Newcomb. Aaron, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks. That's the third time in a row, I think, actually, for me. So, yeah, I've been here quite a bit lately.
I'll try to give you the next week off. Hopefully we've got two other hosts.
I don't mind at all. I don't mind at all.
Okay. Well, thank you for being the eternal go-to guy for this, because our other co-hosts also have crazy schedules like I do, so it's a little crazy sometimes for all that. So thank you guys. Thank you, I guess, specifically, and our other two co-hosts for taking over the show for the last 2 weeks for me, because I have been on a cruise ship, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the show. But we want to get right into this because we have a really great show lined up today. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, Guillaume Benet. French name, and he has created, he's still the head honcho of a project for the, I thought it was the Err Chatbot. I've been doing that for like 9 weeks. I've been saying upcoming Err Chatbot, so we should do it on Pirate Day, like Err. But I understand now from actually reading the stuff they sent me that it's the R2 Chatbot, which I know can probably get into all sorts of trouble if you start talking about that. So maybe we'll just be quiet about it for there. But so a chatbot is a mechanism that it's basically a daemon that sits on what would normally be a human channel, like an IRC channel or a Jabber channel or something else like that. It is watching for sequences of things happening in the channel and reacts to it. So, for example, you might say, "Tell me a joke," and the bot comes back and actually describes a joke, or "Tell me the status of ticket 123," and it goes out to the website where the ticket statuses are stored and fetches the appropriate info and puts it back. So essentially like a pretend human in the sense, but as you're interacting with it. So lots of uses for that. I've actually created a few myself, so this should be somewhat familiar. How familiar are you with chatbots, Aaron?
I've used chatbots in the past, not as extensively as you have, but I've also built in little programs that I don't develop a lot of stuff, but when I do development, I like to be able to get notifications back about when jobs are done or when something's finished compiling or something like that. So I think bots in general are very useful for that. That way I don't have to go out and actually interrogate a system log to find out what's happened. You can get notifications a lot easier. And so I'm really interested in this. And I also thought the name was Err Chatbot. I thought it had to do with error logs or something. So yeah, this will be good to see, what do you actually call this thing and what it's good for. I'm really looking forward to figuring out more about the way this particular chatbot works.
Yes, I like what you just said there a moment ago. I don't always develop programs, but when I do, I like notifications. I am the most interesting programmer in the world. Yes,
right, exactly. Do I need my
Need a beard.
Yeah, I do.
I'm the one who can do that. Yeah. There we go. All right. All right. So we're just stalling now because we've got a show to do. So let's go ahead and bring on our guest. Guillaume Benet, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
And where are you speaking to us from?
I'm currently living in San Francisco.
Very cool. Very cool. It's not too far away. Then actually you could have just driven up to the studio and you would have had two people in the studio and me remote like we've done before. That's okay, though. We can do it from here. All works through the magic of Skype. We can just go ahead anyway. Well, I gave a sort of an overview of what I have been calling the Err Chatbot, but I see somewhere it's called the R2 Chatbot at the beginning of the show. Why don't you give us sort of the 30,000-foot view, the overview of what's a chatbot, what is a specific chatbot, and what problems does it solve?
So a chatbot is basically a program you can interact with in a chat room. So either an IRC channel or a Jabber chat room. But also on like the new breed of enterprise chat rooms like Campfire from 37 Signals or HipChat that has been bought by Atlassian recently. So the bot is a tool you can actually put request on it and it spawns the response to everybody that is participating to a chat room. So what is specific about ARM, our chatbot, is that it's a kind of a new version of it. It has been existing for a long time actually, the chatbots back to the early IRC days, but right now we see that a lot of computers start to be connected over the web. You have a lot of webhooks, of APIs, and so on. So R is actually a chatbot that allows you to connect outside of your chat room easily.
Okay, so basically it's a program that's watching what normally would be humans talking to each other. It's like all these different IRC and Jabber mechanisms, things like that you talked about. And it's a program watching for certain patterns of things to trigger on. And it may also be watching external sources and interject messages into the chat room based on these external things happening.
Yes, exactly. So I can give a simple example. For example, one of the first usage of our bot was internally back at Mondial Telecom. And it was about interacting with the bug tool. Basically, the team was meeting in a chat room, and if you were talking about a specific bug, you can actually type a request to the bot, and the bot will answer you with a summary of the bug, so and the status of the bug. So everybody is at the same page when they are discussing about a specific subject, for example.
Okay, so why would you need something like this? I mean, isn't it simple enough to just go hit a web page and get the same information?
But while you are in the chat room, it's easier to actually have the information live, and you can actually request. You can actually pinpoint some information to the people participating in the chat. Like we had, for example, the dependencies of the bug. It's really hard to actually see that somewhere. So you could actually show the graph of okay, you know what, we need to work on this bug, but this one is blocking. The bot can tell you that right away. So you are still in the flow with your team discussing about it.
Yeah, one of the things I've noticed too is that with this geographic diversity that we've had, especially in open source projects, things like Freenode, we actually interviewed the Freenode guys a couple of years ago, have just really taken off in terms of having a place to hang out, like a watering hole, where people can come in and say, chat for a little bit and say, I'm working on this particular bug and I'm having some trouble with it. I'm not really seeing how it interfaces with something else. I guess it's kind of nice then to have a bot where you can say, give me the current status of that bug, or maybe show me what's depending on that, so I can and have that information be available in the chat room. Are you seeing a lot more usage of chat rooms like this?
Yes, actually. So you're right. In the open source projects, it's pretty common to have chat rooms, and in companies too. Actually, I encourage the usage of chat room, even if you are close by. I mean, even if you have your colleagues just 2 steps away, because it's in middle of a phone call and an email. An email is completely asynchronous, and a phone call is completely synchronous. You have to answer now. And the chat can be a little bit of both. So people can still work on things on their computer, still develop or do their job on their computer, and actually interact when they want to interact.
That is the one nice thing I like about having something like a chat room rather than, say, like a live Skype call, an audio call, or a video call, is that if I have to do a Skype audio call or video call, it really consumes at least 95% of my attention. I can't turn away from it for very long because then I'll get lost in the conversation. Whereas a chat room, I can kind of get caught up real quick by scrolling back a few lines if I've been away for a few minutes. And it really seems to work really well for that. I'm actually an old hand at chat rooms. I've been doing chat rooms since the first let's see, even before EFnet IRC, I'm trying to think of the one that was before that. There was some sort of other network that sort of felt like that. But the EFnet and the IRC protocols replaced all that. So I go backwards. So let's talk specifically about, and so I'm getting this right, R2 is the way you pronounce this? How is it different
Sorry?
So how is it different from the other chatbots?
So R2 has been developed. Actually, its original name. It's R2D2. But when I open sourced it, I was like, I can't use this name at all. So I thought about it. It was I didn't know. So so it ended up being its name. But we still call it R2 internally. So the difference between this bot and the others is that it has been made from scratch to be very easily extendable. So when you need a specific feature, it's really like a couple of lines of code to actually make your extension happen. And so the first feature that allows that is that it is extensible by Git. So you just have to, if you are the administrator of the bot, you can pinpoint the bot to a specific Git repository, and the bot gonna get this feature straight from it. So that's one nice thing. It is also the API is really the learning curve for the API is really slow. So you can make like your first inner joke or like really a simple hello world in basically 2 lines. So that's the other point. Also, what is specific about the bot is that we made some extensions for webhooks. So it's integrated with the bot. Webhooks are like notifications, standardized notifications from servers. For example, if your team is using GitHub as a source management, you can actually be notified by webhooks about new codes being merged in your repo. So the bot can react on that and saying, John did this commit at that time with this command. So the other people in the team can react, for example, on that. But you have a lot of APIs like that, like Twilio or literally, if you go to programmableweb.com, I think you have like hundreds of sites like that with APIs you can interact with.
I'm curious, actually, what you just said about the implementing interface directly to GitHub in the sense of adding, or any Git repo probably, adding external features. Does it actually track the repo after that? Does it actually then ping the repo every once in a while and see if there's an update?
No, actually, the webhooks are made for that. So GitHub has a webhook. You can specify the URL back to your bot, and once GitHub detects that something is new, it will notify the bot by a simple HTTP post.
Oh, so you can actually have it sort of be self-maintaining, self-updating, and deploy it out. Wow. Okay. So how? Can you give me an idea of? We've actually mentioned a few of these, but can we look at sort of the breadth of the existing plugins so we can see some of the various tools or tasks that people might want to use?
Yeah. So we have a lot of like. Simple ones like a calculator that could be useful, for example, or really simple ones like private jokes. You could request like the last explicitly. What else do we have as plugins? Somebody did a nice plugin about TV. You want to talk with your team about when is the next Breaking Bad? So you just request a bot and the bot gonna tell you, it's that date. Awesome, it's tomorrow. We have so we did a lot of integration also with the build systems. That's more serious usage. So you can actually see, for example, you can request a build. You just committed something. You want this branch to be built. You can request a build system from the chat, and then see the result back in the chat. So everybody is at the same page at that moment. For example, QA. sees that okay, the continuous integration for your project is all green. All green, so we can go on and test it. Like really tons of applications. I see that a lot of the users that have been talking back to me were using it in DevOps mode, where they actually monitor a lot of their services through the bot, so they can be warned real time about alerts on their systems. And things like that. There is like more than 30 plugins, something like that on GitHub now.
Have you thought about developing plugins for some of the social networks? And I know this is getting a little bit off, maybe a little off topic, but one area where I see this could be really useful, obviously, is for system admins that have large server environments, and they want to be able to both see what's going on in those environments, and then also be able to interact back with those machines around their environment. And I'm just then that kind of led me to think, as you were talking about internal social networks like Yammer and Chatter over at Salesforce now, that seem to be replacing intranet pages, like it used to be a web page, an internal web page that everybody used, and now some of these other services are starting to come along and say, no, so a social paradigm is much better. And I'm just wondering if you've ever thought about integrating this with any of those networks, so that internally, like in an IT department, people could actually just subscribe to or somehow interact with those internal social tools beyond just the chat room interface, beyond just IRC.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. No, I didn't really thought about those internal tools. I do. We do have actually a social plugin for the bot that allows you to at least follow Google plus pages or Google plus people actually.
Right.
That could be the beginning of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that there's a lot of opportunity there in partnering with some of these other providers. I mentioned a couple of them that to develop the sort of social interaction, because that's really what we're talking about here. Is we're talking about turning static logs and static communication with servers and different types of work like that into really more of a social experience, right?
Yeah, an interactive tool, basically.
Right. The other thing that I didn't realize about this when I was doing some research and reading up on it was that this is really a two-way interaction, as we just mentioned, right? I mean, it's not just that you're sending information and capturing log, triggering on certain log entries and things like that, but you're also actually able to send commands back. How difficult is that?
Oh, it's really easy actually. It's every time I made a small presentation where I presented the API. Actually, you have four types of interactions with the bot. So the one you talked about, plain commands, you just have like a keyword or an exclamation mark and a command, and then the parameters of the command. That's the most basic interaction. You have also a more actually, the bot can listen to a conversation and actually react on anything. That's the second way of interacting. So, for example, if an alert comes in the chat, it can actually react like a filter for an email. If you can think about this one. There is also a polling feature, so the bot can actually wake up every, let's say, whatever time interval you want, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and actually can check something on the net and warn back people if something new happened. And the first one was the Webbooks I was talking about. So it's really made to actually aggregate content and aggregate actually events that are happening anywhere.
I'm not familiar with Webbooks. You mentioned that earlier as well. Could you explain what that is and how that works?
Basically, you see on the web, you have a lot of APIs, so entry points for developers to actually trigger a call to an external service, like I don't know, adding a post to a feed or triggering any feature on the remote website. But the problem of that is that you don't have the way back. So now we have actually webhooks that is basically the way back. You say to the external service, you know what? When something happens, just call me back on the same way I call you. Actually, it's just an API call.
So web hooks.
Webhooks, yeah.
Ah, okay. I thought you were saying waybooks. I'm like, what are these waybooks he's talking about? I've never heard of this before. Is this like an open, ebook protocol that I haven't heard of? Well, I'm glad we got that. That makes a lot more sense. So I'm glad we got that figured out. And some of the, I'm looking at the blog. Some of the commands that you have here are really not what I would expect when we first started. When I first started looking up what this was all about. So, like for example, one of the commands, some examples of the commands you have here are exclamation point show me Mr. Bean, for example, one of my favorite commands. In fact, my dog is named Mr. Bean. You have another relevant one, especially for today, is you have exclamation point battle Obama versus Romney. Like what would those commands actually go out and do?
No, those are many jokes actually. Show me is just a call to the Google API for images. So if you want, I don't know, a picture of anything, you can ask it. And it for example, in HipChat or for example, Comfire, when you send back an image URL, it does actually display it. So it's awesome in a chat room, because you could say, yeah, show me really anything you could think about. And the other, it's the plain old Google battle. It counts the number of hits on any of them.
So it'll return the number of hits, not like every link that it comes up with, but it'll go use the Google. I think there's a service that gives you that. It'll go and look up how many hits it gets for various terms.
Exactly.
Right. Very cool. So how have you seen this deployed? What interesting ways have you seen other people's deploying this to do cool things?
The main one I've seen is actually on the operation side. So people monitoring machines because they wanted to actually be warned about whatever happens on their system, and they were quite interested by the easy way to do it. It's just a few lines of code, like I said. I did also, for example, a nice plugin that's gonna go out. Also with Twilio, it's a way of actually. It's almost a Google Voice clone. Mm-hmm. So when you get a call on your number, you are warned before your phone is actually ringing, which is quite nice, because you can then interact, like, okay, put the person on voicemail, or reply with a sentence that the bot gonna read to the person on the other side. And actually you can even get the transcription in the chat of what the person just said. So I mean, the possibilities are endless with the number of APIs you have on the web. It's just incredible.
Yeah. How hard is this to set up? If I wanted to set up my own service at my work or in my home or whatever, I mean, what do I need? What are the requirements here?
So basically, it's just a daemon. So it's a service like any Unix service. Mm-hmm. You can run it under Windows also. Some people are running that under Windows or macOS. You just need the best way would be a server. You can actually run a VPS. A small one doesn't require a lot of bandwidth or CPU, and that's basically it. We have a package for Gen 2, but for other distributions, it's really easy to just start the process at the beginning of the boot up process.
What about is there documentation? Like if I wanted to implement some of the things that you talked about, is there a wiki or recipes for how to do that?
Yes, we have good documentation on the wiki of the GitHub page you see on the screen. So you just go on GitHub, and you'll have like examples, minimal examples to get you started, and it takes you from there, from simple examples to more advanced usage.
You know, clearly talking to Twilio to make a SMS or a phone call or something is going to be a fairly different abstraction from dropping a message into an IRC channel. So when I'm writing a plugin, how aware do I have to be of the communication channel? Are there sort of like high-level things that work no matter what the communication channel is, and then more specific things for things like sending an SMS?
Basically, all those APIs, those REST APIs, are quite standard. So you have tools in Python to interact with them. So that's why it's quite easy on that side. You have even a lot of those APIs on the web have bindings. So basically, a library you can call to actually call the service.
Okay, so I can write a plugin that will watch a channel for, say, a query, Google this, and attach it to an IRC channel, and then tomorrow attach it instead to a Jabber channel, and the next day instead attach it to Campfire without really having to change much of my code then, right?
Yes, the code is completely chat server independent. We have backends for every single type of chat.
I'm intrigued a little more by this Twilio. I know you work there, so we have to be a little careful not to make this sound like a plug for Twilio. But
yeah.
What does it do? And are you using R2 in Twilio, if you can say that? And what are some good examples of how that all connects up?
Actually, I don't use the R2 yet at Twilio. I just
Okay.
when you enter the company, you have actually to make an application on Twilio. So yeah, I saw that like a good opportunity to make something useful out of the two.
Okay, so basically, just again, just to fill in for the audience, because I know a little bit about Twilio since I've stared at it for a while. It's a way of having an API to be able to send and receive SMS and send and receive, and actually, it's also phone calls too, right? I can't remember all the features.
Phone call. Yeah, you have a full stack. You can place call, receive calls, redirect calls. You can basically make IVRs. You can hook up really easily conferences, call queues. So it's basically all the tools that were on PABX on site that they actually deported up on the web.
So essentially with Twilio, you could create a call center and then using R2, watch the queue and have it send messages into an IRC chat that everybody's watching at the call center to say, now we're up to 20 messages in the queue, now we're up to 25, that sort of thing, right?
You could do that easily, really easily.
Wow, that sounds really cool. The company I'm currently contracting for, not for next week, I'll have more to say about that at the end of the show, is they're running essentially a call center, and they're all sitting in the same chat room, and this would be kind of cool to hook that into that. Have you interfaced R2 with Asterisk and its APIs?
No, not yet.
Okay, but that should be similar too, because Asterisk has a number of web APIs, and it's just a matter of making the right call, right?
Yeah, you could do that, yeah. Not as simple as Twilio, probably, because it's quite obscure sometimes, Asterix, but yeah.
I knew you'd say that, but... Yeah, okay. So what, I think you mentioned this earlier, but what language is this in?
I'm sorry, it's in Python.
I know. That's what I see it in front of me here, but I just wanted to make you say it. So what was it? What had you choose Python?
Actually, the internal language we used at Mondial Telecom when I did it was Python. But I think it's quite a good language for beginners. So it's very easy, very pure syntax. So basically, to tell you, some people started to learn programming on the bot, because they saw that, oh yeah, it's just, yeah, you copy paste a few things and it just works. And you make a mistake, you just update your repo, you redeploy, and you can try it right away. So people got hooked to programming on the bot with this. But yeah, just Python is quite an easy language to start with. I've absolutely no religion about languages. I use so much different languages, so now I'm pretty agnostic.
They're all ultimately Turing complete, so that's really the only thing that matters to me, is that I can eventually get something done. So that's the important part. Although just how expressive and how optimized it is for the tasks I have at hand, that'd be the only thing that made me choose one language over another. When you're chatting on IRC, and I think also in Jabber and a few other things, there's the notion of private messages versus public messages. Can you have the bot only reply back as private messages or something like that to keep the clutter from happening?
Yeah, so you can actually talk privately to the bot, so you can interact exactly the same way you would do it publicly. Actually, it's quite useful, to actually prepare something. Say, what is this bug or this bug? You can search and so on. So it is not public. And we recently added also another feature that is quite cool, where you can specify if a command is too verbose, actually flooding the channel. You can say, okay, if somebody issues this command publicly, just reply privately.
Oh, cool. Very nice. How does it scale? Not really scale, but how well does it have a lot of state, in the sense that if you needed to replace it for high availability, it would have a hard time getting from the first instance to the second instance?
I never deployed it for high availability, but pretty much, actually the state is on disk, so you would add to share a disk and basically rerun the other instance from it. Okay,
so it wouldn't be too bad then, but it's odd that you've never even maybe considered that. But everybody I'm talking to these days, it's all about HA. It's got to run HA. It's got to go fast. It's got to be there 100% of the time. We need 7 nines of reliability. Yeah, right. Okay, no wonder. No problem with that.
It was funny because when I started the bot, it was really like a side project in the company. So it started and people started to aggregate features to it, and it started to be really useful for the company. And but it was completely hidden as a project. And one day, actually, somebody came to me and said, "You know what? Your bot should be production ready now. It's prod now." I was like, "What?" And that's how I realized that it could be really useful.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about licensing and why your choice of license. So, what license is this under?
So we started as a hack around Jabberbot, like a really very small framework that was just doing Jabber, and we grew from there. But Jabberbot is GPL v3, so we continued on that.
Okay, and what's your community size like? How many people are core committers to this?
So we are 3 people as core committers. We have a few dozens of people committing to actually proposing patches and so on. And I try to gather stats. It's not really easy, but I think like 30 teams are using it right now around the world. So it means that, I don't know, the teams could be like 10 people or around 10 people each.
Okay, and are most of those patches to add more plugins in the core, or is it to actually change some of the fundamental mechanism or fix some of it?
It has cooled down on the core side. Obviously, we added a lot of stuff more like 6 months ago. Now, there are more contributions about plugins. But plugins, you don't really need to contribute. You just have to put it on GitHub, and it is accessible for everybody.
And what's your future for this? Do you have really big plans? Are you going to make it take over the world or become Skynet, or like what else? Probably not that then.
No. Just no. My goal is that it's probably useful for a lot of teams around the world. So so just make use it. I don't have any other plan than just this bot.
Did you have intentions to open source it from the beginning, or was that something you added later?
Actually, not really, because it was really a hack when we started up. So actually, it came to a point where it was unmanageable because we didn't have this plugin architecture or none of that. So people were just committing things in there. It was crashing all the time because everybody wanted to put their own jokes or own commands. And so that's why I one day I said, okay, I need to clean that up. So that's why actually the plugin architecture came in. So starting like that, and once I did that, I realized that it could be useful for somebody else. And then it was only XMPP, and we started to add other backends because publicly people started to have wanted to integrate with other chat systems.
I'm going to make a psychic prediction. I may be wrong on this, but I want to see how accurate I am. I bet the early version of this thing had when a message comes in, if it starts with this, call that routine. Else if it starts with this, call that routine. Else if it starts with this, call that routine. And then it eventually got patched to where there were like 75 things there, right?
Almost. It was just almost a modular big blob of code.
Yeah, that's how every chatbot starts. I knew it. Okay, I wasn't far off then. That was pretty good. I'm looking down the list here. So how did you get involved with? So what's the big thing you had to change to make it open source then? If it was sort of ugly to start with, at what point did you consider open sourcing it, and what did you have to? What's the ugliest thing you had to clean up to make that possible?
It was probably the plugin architecture. It was really that was really the minimum to be able to show that to anybody. A lot of things about you take for granted but takes a lot of time is documentation, actually explaining how to write a plugin easily, because when it's an internal tool, you have like the tam mechanism where you have the tradition passing by from one developer to the other. But once you open source that, you need to be really clear about what it does, how it works, and how to develop plugins.
What's the most surprising thing you've learned from all these products you're interfacing with where the actual implementation differs from what the specification said? Because I'm sure there's at least one of those. Maybe not.
I'm thinking, indeed, you encounter here and there like weird things, like for example, for webhooks, actually there is no real standard out of it. So I implemented the most common one the first time I used it. The second time it was another way of making webhooks, and the last time with Twilio it was another way of actually sending information. So. But hopefully the bot adapts now for you, and I had to hack that for the user, so it's simple, still the same structure that is coming into for your plugin.
Is there a way to? Are there plugins for things like SMS? And I'm assuming there is for email, but I'm just thinking like this would be great to have. Like we've been talking about for system admins or people in IRC, but what happens when you get that one thing that actually people need to know about right away, and they're not necessarily in IRC at the time? So is there a way to take that and give it some immediacy, either in the form of an SMS message or email or some kind of notification system? Are there plugins that enable that kind of communication? And that really is probably a if-then type of statement, right? If this thing comes up with warning asterisk, 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 something, you take that message and you apply some rule to it that says, go email these 3 people because, 3 systems just crashed and they need to get into the data center and fix that right now.
Yes, that's exactly the the type of applications actually the ops guy are doing with the bot, actually escalating problems with actually notifications external from the chat room if the guy is not present.
Right.
There is also an interesting plugin is that you can actually the bot can record the conversation and you can search in it historically. So that's quite nice when you miss something, there was an alert and you want to see who interacted with it, what happened at that time when the thing went wrong. So you can go back in the past and look at what the bot actually recorded at that point.
Right. I can see this being like in an IT shop somewhere. I can see this being on a big monitor, and have that monitor actually showing the chat log, and kind of so that as you're walking by to the break room or something, you can take a quick glance and say, oh, my build or my install of such and such just got done. Now, I know that's done. I can go back. And so I don't have to necessarily physically interact with it, but I can see it kind of being a monitor board for a lot of different things. Obviously, everything's not going to live there, but I can see it being a very useful tool for system administrators to be able to monitor what's going on in their environment. So I think that aspect of it is pretty interesting.
The way that actually the bot can actually react to external events like that could actually make the way to features that are half manual, half automatic, for example.
Yeah.
You could I have a good example about it. For example, we in the development team, I developed a plugin for hot fixes. So basically, it interacts with the source system, the build system, and warn people when you actually hotfix something on a production environment. It is quite useful because often what happens is that you have this server that has a problem, you go in, you change something, you restart the service, and then you forgot to for example, to commit it to a specific repo or warn anybody about it. There, this plugin was actually in the middle, with where you could actually follow where the hotfix was and actually warn back the developer saying, you know what, you hotfixed that, okay, it fixes this bug. Now please commit to those branches to be sure that the thing is corrected for good.
Right, and I kind of think too, like there could be, in I make a lot of things, so I'm thinking like, oh, now I've got this big monitor that's showing me all this stuff. Maybe I could have like a bank of like 1960s style buttons or something, like, oh, there's a security patch available for this server, and then underneath the monitor there's a blinking light that's going too, and I go over and I press the blinking light and it applies the security patches to the server, something like that, where I don't know, it's overkill, I know, but I can just see something like that being made available by tools like this.
Yeah, indeed. They're really in the middle of automated and warnings and manual actions.
Yeah, maybe John and the guys here at the because there's a lot of IRC. We always have an IRC running during all the shows here on the TWiT network, and I'm just wondering, maybe there's something we could do there, to enable. Way we wouldn't want to do it, but it'd be kind of interesting. Like send a chat message back through IRC to switch the camera to another camera or something like that. And John's cringing over there, I'm sure, right now, just thinking of what would happen. But maybe there's things like that you could do for even like for broadcast TV and things like that.
Yeah, indeed. Well, at one point, I was thinking about something for the DJs, actually, to program and interact on actually a radio on the web. You could actually add and remove tracks.
That's awesome. I love it.
And see what are the next tracks and so on. And you could have like DJs cooperating on the same track list.
Right. Or a voting mechanism. Maybe there's a way to hook up a voting mechanism. So there's a voting, exclamation point vote for camera A. And then whatever one gets the most votes after a certain period of time, it automatically changes the camera or changes the track or whatever to the other one. I don't know. There's all kinds of possibilities with this. So I'm infinitely more interested in this than I was when I did my initial research. It sounds so exciting.
Actually, there is a voting plugin in the bot now. You should contribute.
So it's already there. So all we have to do is really extend that out to control
exactly.
whatever we want it to control. So that's awesome.
If he did that, though, John wouldn't have anything to do. I mean, he'd just be sitting back watching these channel messages, and it'd all be automated. That'd be kind of crazy. But we're not trying to eliminate you, John. Please, you got to stick around. I have a couple more questions real quick, and we're just about out of time, so I want to make sure we get these in here. I think you touched on this earlier, but can you use an R2 bot to essentially bridge between, say, people that prefer IRC want to go to an IRC channel, people that prefer Jabber would go to a Jabber server, maybe even people on Campfire prefer Campfire, and have the messages actually proxy through. I guess it'd have to be like an op on each one of those so it can be the equivalent of that user on the other channels. Has that been accomplished, or is that even possible?
It has not been implemented yet. You could do it. Actually, at the beginning, the bot was actually bridging, was acting as a chat room. So basically bridging people over channels. Now you can use only one backend, but that's a good idea actually to be able to bridge several backends and be present on several backends. What you can do actually right now, what is implemented is that you can relay actually messages saying, okay, you know what, you heard something from this channel, just put it on this one. That's possible now, but not
What's
across
the
backends. Yeah.
Sorry.
Not across the backends.
Okay. What? Okay, so it has to be within a family then. Okay. What's the mechanism that allows for this thing to be watching and listening and talking all at the same time? Are you using some sort of Python framework that looks for events and or event-driven framework of some kind?
No. It's all homemade. So there is no really real frameworks. We just use G-Event on the IRC side because the bridge we are using is using G-Event, but it could be a good idea actually to generalize that to every single backends. What we have is just a simple thread pool for commands, so people can actually request several things at the same time.
So what happens when a message comes in is you launch a thread or at least request a thread to go do something, so it doesn't block any other incoming message then.
Exactly, and with limit, so you don't flood the bot.
Obviously, we had Twisted on the show a little while back. I don't know if you're familiar with Twisted, but that seems to be a real popular Python framework. So
it could be a good idea.
Take a look at that. Like I said, we're almost out of time. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to make sure our audience is aware of?
No, I think it was a pretty good coverage. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. Made a good show there then. Okay, great. And of course, I have to ask the two questions. I know we answered one already since we've already talked about this earlier. But your favorite scripting language is, of course,
Python.
Python. Yeah. Have you? How long have you been coding in Python?
Hold on. Actually, as a real language and not only a scripting language, like 5-6 years. But it comes back earlier. I don't even when I started to use it as like a side tool for helping on specific build scripts and so on.
Okay. And your favorite text editor?
That you're gonna be happy. It's Vim.
Lost on both accounts. See, I go away, and the previous shows they're actually doing the ones I like, and now on this show I come back and I'm stabbed in the heart twice. But that's okay. It's your preference. I shouldn't be mad. I'm just hosting the show. What the heck does that mean anyway? Well, Guillaume Benet, really appreciate you coming on the show, talking about what I now know how to pronounce is R2. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
Very good. That was Guillaume Benet. I'll get it right sometime, maybe now that he's gone, talking about his project. What do you think, Aaron?
It's really very interesting, actually. I think that there's the thing I'm most interested in is what I brought up earlier on, which is extending this out, but beyond chat room interface to social networks, and there's already some work done there, right? So, but that's really an extension. Now, what I'm thinking of is taking this and repurposing it into something that actually can feed into specifically, in hopefully a standardized way, things like Yammer and Chatter and internal, because not everybody uses IRC, and I'm just thinking that there could be some interest in seeing this developed into something as standardized as possible that can fit into that type of architecture. And maybe, if we're lucky, maybe that could be, if it's not R2, maybe it could be called D2, and then you could have R2D2. As the pair of programs, right, that interact with this. There was actually, on that note, there was a pretty good suggestion for a show title in the chat room, which is "These aren't the bots you're looking for." So if we did those types of extended show titles like we do for Twig and some of the other shows, that would have been a good one. But yeah, I think it is really interesting. I think that for its core intended audience, which are developers and system admins and things like that, I think this is actually really, really useful, and it's an easy way, which is another benefit here, for people to get it up and running and interacting with their systems, their particular setup. It's not a very steep learning curve, so people can get in, change things around right away, get it running with whatever their particular environment is, and start using it right away, which is always great.
Yeah, and one of the things I like about bots like this is that I think it's a Perl bot, but my current and soon-to-be ending client, Media Temple, has like 5 or 6 IRC channels, not IRC, Jabber channels. And they have bots that span all of them, and bots that are in the particular ones, like the ones the admins watch and the ones that the operators watch and the ones that the customer service people watch. And it's really nice because they can send out a message using the shared bot to say, now we have a down on this machine, and the CS people have to know that so that they know if they start getting calls on it, that's the cluster that's down. And of course, the admins need to know because they got to start running around and fixing the crazy thing.
Right.
And I think parts of it are driven by the actual monitoring, the Nagios and Zabbix monitoring that they're using. So I think there's actually messages that come in as a result of that. And also when there's trouble tickets from customers that come in, they get some notification there as well, or at least they can pull up the subject line in the chat room when they're sort of talking about it, like anybody know how to solve this one, and they type the ticket number, and the ticket number, then the bot goes out and fetches the ticket subject and the affected customer. And it's really a nice way to kind of keep people in the loop and bring in external information. So it sort of has a personality of its own at that point, because you can tell it to go get the information on this, and it comes back with it. So there it is. It's really really amazing that way. Yeah. And yes, I've been around chat rooms. In fact, stupid me, I wrote a chat room back in 1982. So I'm trying to, not even that. No, 1976, 1975 was back when I was in high school. I wrote a chat room. I wrote an email and chat system that was being used by 25 high schools all over the Portland metro area. So. Wow. I was the big guy in there.
Experience.
So I'm again graybearding this one. It's I'm an old guy with this stuff. So I've been doing chat and email since before it was called chat and email back in the old days. So this all brings back memories for me. God, we're gonna have to do a nostalgia show someday. I can't have you young whippersnappers on it, but we'll get some old geezers in. I'll get some of my older dudes on there, and be kind of fun to chat about stuff like that. Anyway, yeah, great project. There's similar ones in Perl. I know there's a real interesting, fascinating, pluggable Perl chatbot that's been used by a lot of people, chatbot.pl, and it's actually sitting on a number of channels. And I don't know what the standard IRC chatbot from Freenode and stuff is written in, but I imagine it's something like Perl or Python or something like that.
Yeah,
Nixserve and Chanserve, that kind of thing.
Right, and I think even gamers are, especially PC gamers, are used to this type of interface. I mean, even still today, when I'm running Counter-Strike, playing a Counter-Strike game or something like that, early on, the developers, probably the Half-Life developers, put in certain interactive verbiage into the game, so you can do things like next map to find out what the next map is, or vote map to vote for the next map, or all kinds of things. There's betting systems in Counter-Strike where you can bet on whichever team you think's going to win and make more money, all this stuff. So I mean, even gamers are used to this type of interactive system where you put in a command, you get some sort of feedback back from the program that's running. And so I think that certainly people that are used to IRC, it's a great mechanism for. But I think because it's so easy to use and easy to develop for, I think it extends beyond that, so that people that are just getting started on this have a frame of reference in which to kind of understand what could be possible. Yeah,
and just one more old geezer moment here for probably some trivia that most people aren't aware of. Because also you'd have to have been around a couple, like 15, 20 years ago anyway. But the old AOL, when AOL finally introduced person-to-person chat in their walled garden interface, that's actually based on IRC. That code there that was running was basically an IRC server, but slightly modified. So that's how they got scale for it, because IRC can scale pretty well horizontally by having servers talking to other servers.
Right.
So it's so IRC lives on in terms of AIM. I mean, AIM is still the net effect of that. So it's all still there. Code just keeps living on. Good old IRC, and horrible protocol underneath. Have you ever looked at the IRC actual spec? Just awesome. Just awful. I remember I've written enough IRC bots myself, so I know that's a little crazy that way. Okay, awkward transition of the week. I can't think of one, so we'll just go right into it. Upcoming guests, we've got Poodle next week, which is an online translation management tool with a translation interface, web-based. And then the following week, just so you can compare apples and oranges, we've got Zenata, which does roughly the same thing as far as I can tell. We'll have to get them to talk about each other and figure out how they differ from each other so you can pick the right one for your project. The Foreman, which is manages a startup for provisioning hosts. So basically, when you want to spin up a host in a virtual environment, it figures out how to get all the startup to work right. I know we've had a few of those on here already. And again, it's a big subject. It's clouds, man. Everybody's talking about clouds. This is yet another thing you might want to need for cloud stuff. Broadleaf Commerce, which is a fully customizable open source e-commerce framework. That's going to be a buzzword show. I can already tell. Get out your buzzword bingo cards for that one. Cake PHP, which is a web framework. And rounding out the year, we've got Yesod, which is a Haskell web-based framework. So the two big ones there, especially Cake PHP. I know a lot of people using Cake PHP. So it'll be great to bring on the creator of that and talk to him. And Yesod, apparently one of the advantages of it is it never goes down because it's in Haskell. All those Haskell people keep trying to tell me it never breaks because all those threads are separate and they're all, carefully checked and all that. Yeah, right. Sure. You can find out these guests and more by going to the spreadsheet that's listed from TWiT.tv/FLOSS. If you go there, you see the link to our big upcoming guest spreadsheet. You can, if you have people that you want on that list that aren't on that list already, please contact the project leader or the communicator for the project and have them email me, merlin@stonehenge.com. That is how pretty much everybody in the top half of that page got there. So that's what's prioritizing my things. I know people have had comments. We've had a lot of Red Hat projects this year. Look, I do whatever comes to me. So if you want something on the show, get off your hiney and go talk to the people and have them talk to me. And I will interview anybody that's open source that comes to me, because this is what the show's about. It's about getting a broad range of projects. So anybody that's complaining, including you in the chat room, I saw that earlier, no, that's how projects get on this list. They come to me. So you get those projects, talk to me. I will put them on the list. Really, I do. You can follow us on Floss Weekly on Google+, and we're also at Floss Weekly on Twitter and Identica. You can chat. There's live chat room, like I just mentioned. We're at live.twit.tv. There's a web interface there, or there's also an IRC channel that's described there. We're on at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, and that's according to U.S. Pacific Daylight and Standard Time. So I know there's a confusion a couple weeks ago because daylight savings time switched differently for the UK and the US, and apparently Dan was almost late. Too bad. That's the way it works. You can also follow me. I'm at MERLYN on Twitter and Identica, although I don't really post much on Identica. You can also follow me on Google+. I try to post 3 to 5 things a day there. Interesting little links that I find as I'm traversing around the web. I'm Randall L. Schwartz on there, but it should be pretty easy to find me there. I am back from my various 2-week run from the Mediterranean, and it was really, really awesome. But I flew I was in airports and airplanes for 22 hours yesterday. So if I look a little groggy this morning, it's because I'm still kind of jet lagged and still kind of on Rome time. And it's a little crazy for it. So I hope you appreciate and can let me get away with a little bit of maybe eyes blinking a little more often than normal there. I will be back next week at Media Temple for my final week there. So the big MT mic that you've seen all these months, I've been there for like 20 months now. That's going away after next week. So hopefully I'll have more bandwidth again next week instead of the stupid Wi-Fi here. But that's it. And I'm going to have a new client. I'll talk more about that when I get onto the new client, also in Southern California, though. One last thing personal for me. I don't know if you've been following my Google Plus postings, this will be no surprise. But as of this morning, I weighed 191 pounds. And that's still more than I want to weigh. But what's amazing is I weighed 215 pounds a mere 10 weeks ago. So I've lost essentially 24 pounds in about 10 weeks. I'm on a low-carb, high-fat diet. If you Google for LCHF, it's similar to like Atkins and paleo without all the restrictions. And I've been doing really great at that. So if you watch my Google Plus feed, you'll see more about that. You can even ask me questions there. You can also tweet me, and I'll give you more details about that. Also, the Steve Gibson did a couple of shows on climbing Sugar Hill or climbing the Sugar Hill. That's a lot of the same basic information that I would be giving you. So you can start there and then follow some of his blogs from there. So Steve Gibson. So yeah, this is not going to become This Week in Diets. Really, it's not what I do. But I'm just really excited that I've been able to lose 24 pounds in 10 weeks when I've never been able to do that on any other diet I've ever had. And the food is tasty. Enough about me. Aaron, what's going on for you?
Well, I'm a little embarrassed now because I think I was the one that made the comment about all the Red Hat shows, Red Hat sponsored projects that we've had on the show. But it wasn't really a complaint. It was just a comment. It's just that those are the projects that we've had, and that's great. Personally, I think it's great that Red Hat is sponsoring all these projects because not a lot of them tie back into Red Hat's core business, and they're sponsoring them anyway. So I think that's fine. Well, like you say, we'll take what we can get. And if it's an interesting project, it doesn't matter so much who's sponsoring it as long as it's open source. Yes. If you want to follow me on Google+, where I've been talking about all kinds of things, including my trip down, speaking of memory lane, my trip down to the Computer History Museum down in Menlo Park recently, where they had the 25th anniversary of the SPARC processor. So I went down there. I knew about it through work, obviously, because I work for Oracle. So I knew about it, knew that it was going on. But it was really, it's a really super interesting. I mean, talk about going back to the history and how things got started. They had all kinds of people. Scott McNeely did a video presentation. He was not live, but he did contribute with some really interesting comments. Bill Joy was there. Andy how do you say his last name again? Bechtel, Schloss, Beckelheim. I'll get it later. But all those people were up there on stage that were at the beginning of this thing, and talking about how things came along, and they talked about how many times they failed, for example, how many times that they did not get it right. And how they learned from that and built and iterated upon their failures and was able to get things done. So really very interesting. That should be up in video form. I think the Computer History Museum is compiling that all together. It'll be up in video form, and I'll post it on Google+, and you'll be able to find it there and watch it. If you're interested in the history of processors and architectures and how things got started, I would definitely go check that out. It's very, very interesting. So you can follow me there. You can also take a look at my old out-of-date webpage, thesourceshow.org. I'm too busy doing shows here on the TWiT network now to actually do anything on that page. But if you do happen to check it out and it's not available, it's because I'm testing out FreeBSD on the same server. So installing. In fact, I got FreeBSD installed last night. So now I've got it dual booting between Linux and BSD. And so I'll be playing with BSD, trying to get everything set up in BSD. And if it all works, I may just cut over to BSD, just cut the whole thing over and run it on BSD, because I haven't really had a lot of experience running a BSD system. So that'll be interesting. So yeah, follow me on Google+. I also, you can Facebook, Twitter, whatever. I'm there, but I primarily have all my interaction with people on Google+, because it's really the best platform for interaction. So if you like what I have to say and are interested, follow me. Add me to your circles on Google+.
Yeah, I just saw some stuff in the chat room that said Google Plus is dead. Well, that's really weird because I'm getting another like 100 followers every week. So I don't know how dead that is. And I've got something like 18,000, 19,000 followers now on Google Plus, and I get great interactions there. I get the reply mechanism is really nice. Although it's one single thread coming back, it's nice that I can just start a new topic and point to it if I have to really create that. And I like the +1 voting there, so I can quickly look down a thread and go, oh, this is really a good comment without having to read all the comments. So it's not quite as good as Reddit. I think Reddit might actually be a better interface for that. Maybe someday they'll adopt a Reddit-like interface. But yeah, G+ seems to be working for me. It's got a good feel. It's got a good iOS client, so I can post pictures and read all my stuff there and all that stuff. So only the social advanced media first adopters went there initially, and there hasn't been a lot of follow-on since. But if you want to talk technology and stuff, Google Plus is great. And if you want to just post pictures of your cat, stay on Facebook. That's all I care.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I will say the one thing that Google Plus is lacking is an open standardized API. If they rolled that out, I think that they would, they would get off. I think they're maybe at a little bit of a plateau, although I'm not sure the numbers back that up. But I think in terms of active users, they may be plateauing a little bit. I think if they opened up that API, they would see a huge increase in the amount of people interacting with it. And by the way, I'll be talking about that hopefully a little bit later on This Week in Google. If you're a This Week in Google, if you like that show, I will be on that show coming up at, what time is that? 1 o'clock? 1 o'clock. Thank you, John. So I'm just going to hang around until This Week in Google and get my work done here at the Brick House.
Nice, nice. Well, Aaron, it's always a pleasure having you on the other side of the microphone with me, and glad you make that early trek you must make to get from Oakland to Petaluma in time. Somewhere over there, right? It's Oakland? No.
Petaluma, and yeah, it's not a bad drive. It's a 45-minute drive, but it's still early in the morning. It means I have to get up about a little after 6 o'clock to get over here on time to do the show. So, I'm a little groggy. That's why I have my. This isn't Coke. Does it say Coke on the side? No, Mick Cafe. This is I always bring. I have a huge thing of coffee, and it's always just about gone even before we start. And I probably need another one to wake up a little bit more so I can do This Week in Google because I'll be falling asleep by that time.
I've been sucking down the Diet Pepsi over here that's sitting to my right, so it's definitely a necessity especially when I'm in jet lag mode. So hopefully I can do enough running around of errands today that I can go into bed early tonight and get up tomorrow and actually start doing things on the right time. Alrighty, sir, thank you very much. And to our audience, I'd like to say the same thing I say every week. We'll see you all again next week on Floss Weekly.